page.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry for coming on a few minutes late. Had a couple of technical difficulties, but we're here and we're back with another edition of Destiny Rewind. I'm Deacon Philip Moore, and I have with me our illustrious leader, Bishop Ernest Moore. Bishop, how you doing?
I am well. All is well. No matter what my eyes may see, no matter what my ears may hear, all is well.
All is well, absolutely. I concur with that. So let's get right into it. For those that are probably viewing this for the first time, or this is your first time experiencing Destiny Rewind, we are the Destiny Community Church. And what we do with Destiny Rewind, we kind of rewind the tape and we go back to Sunday and really do a deep dive into the word of the Lord that was shared from Bishop Moore, and we get to pick his brain a little bit and just come away with a clearer sense, a clearer understanding, so that we can have practical application in our lives. So tonight, I want to take us through just a short, quick journey through how we've been prophetically progressing through this powerful series that Bishop has been taking us through called Immeasurable, Living Beyond Average. And one of on the onset, he started out with a message simply titled Immeasurable, which caused us to kind of think outside of our normal thought process when it comes to our state of being, who we be, and what we have the potential to become. And that status quo was no longer the option, that there was a capacity within you that was deemed immeasurable. And you have the opportunity now to tap into it. And then in the next installment, he talked about Lord, open our eyes, and talking about the eye of our understanding being enlightened. And we dug into that real deep. You want to check that out, just go back to some of our Destiny Rewinds and you can get some of that. But the next installment was, Lord, let me fall into myself. So after you open my eyes, God calls me to fall right into what you've revealed to me about me. And last week we were talking about, oh no, I've got to grow, and talking about Hannah being in a place where God intentionally delays us for a specific time, that we are to be revealed for a specific purpose. And so that's kind of where we've been traveling down this series of Immeasurable. And when I look at those first four installments, Bishop, the thing that kind of pops out to me was the word awareness, that we're coming into this awareness of this potential that we have, this capacity that we hold, out of our state of being. And you talked about last week, what we want to get into tonight is let's go. So moving from awareness to application or
Mhm.
activation.
Well, I think, thank you for rewinding me. A lot of times, as I am ministering and preaching, I don't get the privilege of hearing myself. And although I do my due diligence in study, it is another reality to hear what people take away from what you are ministering. And I think you are absolutely right. This immeasurable is in our church is going from a series to the second half of the year. I believe this the rest of this year is a time for us to really do some deep soul searching into who we are, because what is going to be blessed in this season is you. And that's where we went on a Sunday with Genesis chapter 12. God says that I'm going to make you a blessing. And so, in this decade of victory, because I believe that why the enemy has been fighting us so much so is because this is our commencement into a decade that we are going to see the manifestation of the glory of God. I prophesy that over our ministry that these are the glory years of our ministry. God is going to unveil us. God is going to reveal us. And we will not have to defend who we are because we are going to be fruitful and we shall multiply. And it's according to that power where we started that worketh within us. But what happens a lot of times, we are like Abram. We have not, or Abram, Hannah, we have not brought forth, and the word of the Lord is hovering over us. It's just there to stir us up. The prophetic utterance is there to over us, waiting for us to acknowledge that word and to move. So last Sunday, that's what I was trying to get us to understand. It is our time to move into the prophetic utterance. The Lord had said to Abram.
Let me jump in right there and just say, listen, we getting ready to dig a little deeper. Why don't you hit that share button? Hit that like button. Why don't you subscribe? If you're on YouTube, subscribe and share this with your friends. Because we get ready to dig in a little deeper and dig into Bishop's mind a little bit deeper here. But yeah, it's one thing to be aware that I have this
Mhm,
capacity.
mhm,
But you said, let's go. That
mhm.
says it's time to act or activate, apply.
Well, you use that word awareness, which is good, but let's put it in the tenets of our ministry, our three E's. And one of the E's that we have is enlightenment. God wants to reveal to you what God or who God has intended for you to be. And that comes when you have an encounter, which causes us to engage. The word of the Lord is to be engaged in. And once you engage in the process of hearing the word of the Lord, because the process of hearing causes you, one, you have to have a skill set of listening. And listening is more than just hearing the words, but you got to process the words on another frequency. And if you are willing to peruse God's prophetic utterance, that it penetrates your imagination, then I just believe that you will be enlightened to uh, be empowered to move. Because what verse 4 says to me in Genesis chapter 12, that's where we came from on Sunday, Genesis chapter 12 and verse 4. And Abra and Lot went with Abram, is where we looked at on Sunday, because I wanted to um, contextualize that your destiny is going to be on fulfilled on a journey with whosoever is willing to go with you, and regardless of what they do to you, you must be willing to go and allow people to follow you into a great revelation that God has revealed to you. And I talked about a little bit on Sunday how we have demonized Lot's going with Abram. But there's nowhere in the text where Lot was not permitted. God told Abram, get out, you go. Now we know that somebody had to go call Sarah. She was not in the text, but she went. So anybody that wants to say that people can't go with you, I want to encourage you. I don't care who follows you, because there's some people that's going to be nosy and some people want to be blessed by you. Now they better manage how they handle you. Manage how they handle you, because there's a consequence, and that's in the prophetic utterance. If you bless me or bless people on their journey to fulfill purpose and destiny, God's going to bless you. And if you curse them, try to hinder them, and God's going to deal with you accordingly. Because what I said on Sunday is that never worry about what people do to you, because God is promise. God is the guarantee that God will take care of you as you obey God's purpose and will for your life. If you can dare to become in the midst of those who follow you, then God will give everybody a revelation that God is with you and God will take care of you because God is your promise. God is not just giving you a promise, but God is the promise.
And one of the things that you've been highlighting during this series is that a lot of times we come under the notion that we're doing things for God
Oh, yes.
versus doing things with God. God
Mhm.
has, in God's infinite wisdom, says, let's make man after our image and after our likeness.
Mhm.
We are the reproduction of the thought of God.
Yes.
And so, if that's the case, then we don't really do anything for God. Everything we do with God.
See, when we do things for God, then you relocate God in your life. God is no longer the center. God becomes either your hierarchy and you get under God, or God becomes beneath you and you're reaching down towards trying to help God do what God has already mastered and done. But when you align yourself with God's will for your life, you center God alongside you because what you do is you position yourself to trust God.
Because, see, God says to Abram, okay, go to a land, but I'm going to show you.
So I am going with you. I am not sending you. And see, if you are doing it for God, then you're going to leave God behind and go on a journey, and you're going to end up probably on a detour. But God is your guide because God is spirit. And one of the things I try to do in this and trying to conscientize the people of God now, we have got to get out of our anthropomorphic definitions of God as being a person. God is a spirit. God is not a man that God should lie. They that worship God shall worship God in truth and God in spirit. And we have to reconstruct our thinking because the reason why most of us don't want to go with God is because we have issues with human beings. And when God is personalized or degraded, Romans chapter 1 says this, Paul in his epistle to get entrance into Rome says, they took the incorruptible God and made God corruptible. They made God in their image and likeness. And it talks about the activities that they were doing, that they lifted the creation over the creator. And I am trying to, in some sense, redeem our definition of God. And that's why I said on Sunday, God is one presence. God is the presence that's working within you, the power. The power. That's what got us into this series of immeasurable, because Paul says, according to the immeasurable riches that's within you, you are going to be able to do things beyond your imagination. So God has to be more than a human being. God has to be that mystery that's a spiritual phenomenon, a spiritual reality that you cannot clothe God as a man or a human being. You've got to say God is the source of this strength. So God is the presence that's going with me. But not only is God the presence, God is purpose, God's will. God as will direct and shape. And I want to, when I talk about God as purpose, you have got to understand what, and you hinted on this a few minutes ago. You have got to understand you are in the image and the likeness of God. So if God is purpose, then you are spending your whole life becoming like God. You are working yourself out of your human limitations into a greater understanding of the self. So much so that when the wisdom writer of Ecclesiastes 3 begins to talk about to everything there is a time and a purpose, and he gets down there around verse 12, he says, God has set eternity within you, though you cannot fathom it or understand it or comprehend it. But the writer in that third chapter of Ecclesiastes says, but everything becomes beautiful in time. So that's a whole thing. As you go alongside God, with God, God that is within you, that you cannot, that eternity that you cannot fathom, becomes a reality of who you are. And you therefore begin to go beyond limitations. You are no longer measurable by according to human realities. You do beyond that.
See, and what we've done, when you say we've made the incorruptible God corruptible, we've lowered God to our thinking,
Our standards.
to our standards, to the
Mhm.
way we psychologically perceive God to be.
Mhm.
When God really can't be psychologically logically perceived, God is revealed. And if God is revealed and God is eternal, you say God sets eternity in us. So everything is revealed to become God as time moves.
Absolutely. And you do not, that revelation does not come face to face with God.
Mhm.
It comes in the reflection of God. As you walk by the way and the leading, God begins to do things. One of the things that in the narrative of Moses, when God and Moses was having conversation and dialogue, he said, nobody ever saw me face to face and lived. So what I want you to do, I want you to get inside the cleft of the rock, and I'll go pass by, and as I pass by, you'll be able to see who I am. And I really believe that as we go with God, we will see in the shadows of God's movement with us, alongside us. And I want to, being with somebody does not mean that you are always right there beside them. Sometimes they go ahead a little bit, but long as you're on the same journey, you'll be able to see. You know, sometimes you get distracted as a child, and your mama's going on further, and they are watching you and see if you can follow their footsteps, but you are on the same journey with your parents. And so I don't want us to lose, as I begin to talk about God passing by us and getting ahead as if God is not with us. God is still with us on this journey, and we should be continuing with God when God goes ahead first of us and gives us the ability to really see the manifestations of God on the journey. And one of the things that is so key in the narrative of Israel, when Israel was in the wilderness, we call God Jehovah Jireh, but Jehovah Jireh was a place where God had provided, because Israel could not even name God until God had revealed it. But we see this setup because Moses and them is post Abram. We see this pattern in Genesis chapter 12. So what I was trying to encourage us on Sunday, I was really trying to encourage, get ready to move with God, because God is moving. This is the season that prophetic reality is going to become your future reality. Your prophetic imagination of today, what God reveals, that notion that's deep down in you that you doubting, can this happen? God is saying to you, like he said to the four lepers, when they were contemplating, if we sit here, we'll die. If we go to the city, we'll die. How we just gonna get up from off of this place of do nothing, and we just gonna see God. And they did. Abram saw God as Abram went.
And what the three things you kind of highlighted to us on Sunday, that God is presence, God is purpose, and God is promise.
And God, that third piece that I did not talk about a few minutes ago, and God is the guarantee. God, you can't go wrong with God and walking with God, because God is that guarantee. A promise is a guarantee. And so when we say, I'm going, I am purposed of God, I'm purpose of God, or purpose to be God in the earth, that's guaranteed when I follow God, when I go with God, because God is my guarantee to that. The God that is. God is never past. God is. We know God of the past, and that means God's movements of the past, but God always is, because our God is an eternal reality. Our God is eternal reality. And I'm shifting, I'm pushing the envelope a little bit, because we won't say the eternal, we say he. And people, the debate is we don't want to call God it, but God is God. And let's take all the pronouns out and say God is God, and God is who God is going to be. And if I follow that God who is, and the God that will be, because God never dies, I will be like him. We'll be quoting like John's epistle. I think the first epistle of John. And he says, beloved, now are we the sons of God. It has not yet appeared what we shall be, but we shall be like him. We are in the process of being like God. Keisha Powell, I see her.
Time to acknowledge some of our people on here. And listen, while we're dialoguing, you all chime in with your thoughts, your questions. But we want to acknowledge some people right now, Bishop, that you got on your.
I see. Class of 86, 1986, Katrina Avens. Good to see you, my friend. My cousin all the way down from Colleton County, Jesse Pringle. We got to start talking, Jesse. Bless you, Pastor Z. Thank God for you being here. Mother Moore is on the line. Prayer, my intercessor, Elder Moore. Thank God, Minister Linda Howell, Pastor Michael Hathaway. God bless you, man of God, great apostle in our city. Kim Robinson, a great educator and administrator. Chandel Allen is here. Kim Robinson. God is God, Kim. I'm pushing us into and probably a more abstract way of thinking, because I want us to understand that the impossibility that's been measured by your family, your friends, your community is no longer measured by them. It will be measured by what God has put inside of you. So if we are going to go beyond average, we have to shift our minds. Our minds have to be renewed until we can begin to re-envision God beyond comprehension. And that's why I'm pushing this envelope. And it's all right for you to talk about the man upstairs, as long as you understand God is not upstairs, God is down in you.
And use the power that re-envision God.
Re-envision him.
See God again.
See God again.
God differently than you once saw God. What we saw God is somewhere out there in the abyss, just helping us when we need help. No, God is the promise in us.
God is the promise in us. Yes, Deacon, go ahead and teach.
If God is the promise in us and God is revealed, we are then revealed as the promise to somebody else.
And we are on the journey of a lifetime.
Absolutely.
Your whole life, you will be unfolding, unpacking God. And when you get to this space in your faith journey or in your spirituality, I'm not talking about your religion, because your religion is set. But if you push the envelope, and the Bible encourages us to go from faith to glory to glory. I want us to get back on this journey of faith, because when we go to Genesis chapter 12, it is the faith of Abraham. The Bible says in Hebrew, it was Abraham's faith that caused him to do this. And see, if you're going to go in the dimensions of faith, you're going on a spiritual ecstasy to really extrapolate that which the eternal God has put in your being. And that's immeasurable.
So you said there's some conditions for this journey, and you hit on one of them already, saying believe in me, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other conditions were be with me,
Mm-hmm.
and the last one was bless me.
Now,
let's get into that.
Now I didn't get to that on Sunday.
Right.
You have other part, because the challenge of me being in the office of the prophet, ministering as a prophet of God, a lot of times God just shift all my notes on the floor, and I didn't get that part. But I do think it is worthy to be noted that you need to be renewed in your belief system, what you believe about God and what you believe about yourself. Because now Abram is on this journey that his father got stuck on, because his father Terah was on his way to Canaan, and on the way to Canaan, the land of Ur became profitable for them. But the father died, and here Abram is stuck with no child, and his brother's son Lot. He was a surrogate for him, and the commerce, the economy was shifting in the land of Ur. But Abram at this point has to hear God for his now situation that does not look good.
So that leads us to a great question that we have on the floor from Bishop Brian Martin. Bishop says, when we see God again, what should we look for? Great question.
What should we look for? I can't answer that, because we are looking through a glass darkly. I went back, thank you, Bishop Martin. Paul said, we look through a glass darkly. But when Paul began to have this dialogue in Corinthians, he began to talk about when I was a child, I saw as a child, I did as a child. So when I was a man, I had to put off childish things. So how I want to respond to that question, Bishop Martin, is this. We cannot say what we should look for, because now we are in a maturation. We have no measure for that. That has to be walked out in faith, and God has to be revealed after we make a move. Because this verse, chapter 4, says, and Abraham went and Lot went with him.
So let's go.
You got to go and see who God be and who you gonna become.
Who God be in you. I know that's terrible English, but who God be in you as you go.
Bishop Martin, you've got to own it when you get there. Bishop Martin blessed me earlier today, because I think we're struggling on this journey. We don't have the confidence, because the whole journey is a waiting process. God is like time release. God reveals God's self in time, but we cannot be static in our faith. We've got to be fluid. We got to be willing to go. And when we get there, so shall God be revealed. And that's how Israel made it through the wilderness. And they were complaining. They got to the Red Sea complaining. And God had to be revealed as a sea opener. But he had to first say, Moses, now you get over your fear and stop all that crying. Get up here and lift up your rod and see what I manifest. He didn't tell him he was going. God did not tell Moses, I'm going to open the sea because you lift up your rod. He gives him instruction, and what comes out of it is God. And that's what I said. What we should look for is God. How do we, and we've got to give God the elasticity to expand as God in our life. God is, but God is expanding to us by revelation because we have not yet seen God on that wise, because we have not offered our offering of obedience. We must offer God the offering of obedience. So all I can do to respond to that, Bishop Martin, has said, we got to obey God. We got to get in that room, Bishop Martin, as you said earlier.
One of the things that the Bible highlights about Caleb was Caleb wholeheartedly followed God. He
Yes.
fully followed God.
Fully, he had another spirit. When everybody else was looking at the measure of stature, they said, the men are bigger than us. We are like grasshoppers. See, that's a measurement. And when we start measuring, we miss God. It really doesn't make a difference how big it is or how small you are. When God says go to Canaan, when you get to Canaan, he'll give you instructions and the wall will come down. And see this whole setup is on the way to Canaan. Abram had to see it first as the father of the movement. And then they had to continue the journey.
We have another question on the floor from Minister Hassan Washington. Minister Washington, how you doing? Thank you for joining us. He says, what are some ways to deliver the concept of God being the eternal reality to the unbeliever? For us in the body, it seems so simple, but how do we give that truth to those who don't understand?
The carnal-minded man cannot perceive the things of the spirit. And I think when you start having these conversations are really for them that are in the way. And when you start trying to convince people that are not in the way or not in the belief, the signs follow them that believe. All you can do for unbelievers is live the life before them. Lot, in some sense, is an unbeliever. And we see that a Lot is an unbeliever. How Lot gets disqualified from the journey at some point is because he didn't believe that Abram was the man. So when there came tension between the cattle, because they got prosperous on the way, when the tension came, rather than Lot saying, I am with you, like the narrative of Ruth and Naomi. The other daughter said, I'm going on by my way. But Ruth said, I'm going to stay here with you. And what happens is that until people can really appreciate being with you, your witness to the world is your manifestation of God's glory. It is not in the dialogue of trying to coerce or convince. You never have to coerce or convince people. You have to let God be made manifest in you. I believe that because people ain't gonna believe your philosophical construct about your faith. People cannot deny the manifestation of your faith. So I want to say that to Hassan because you're young. In my youth, when I was 19 and preaching, I thought I was going to say the word because I was real holiness. I was real Pentecostal. You're going to hell. But thank God for my father. My father, who was not saved, like the church that I attended, said to me, son, the things you believe today, you won't believe tomorrow. So you have got to be open. That said to me, you got to be open to believe more, and you believe more by following God and stop trying to prove yourself to people. You cannot prove your worth to people. You can only show them that.
Oh, you can't prove it. You only show them. My dad taught me this as a kid. He said, you know, you never have to tell people what you can do. Just do it.
Just
They'll
do it.
do all the talking for you.
And that some sense go back to the text. God's way is showing. I will show you. God will display you. Now I'm getting in front of the text. I know what the text was a directive to Abram, but I want to expand it. So I want to be careful because I know I got the best theologians and the best Bible scholars here on this line, but I want to make sure that I'm putting it there as Dr. James Henry Harris said, get in front of this text. I want to get in front of this text by saying, not only will God show you the way, but God will also show you in the way. That because you have gotten in this way, going with God, the God that's within you will become the God outside of you, and all you will be swallowed up is glory. And how does that work in Abram's life? Abram becomes Abraham, and all the laughing that happened while he was becoming Abraham. You know, his wife even laughed, said, this body ain't gonna do that. So get my handmaiden. But God manifested because Abraham stayed faithful to what God said. In spite of the mistakes, he remained faithful. Because you got to factor in, you're going to fail on the journey. But that's the purpose. God is with you. He says, David said it like this: you won't utterly fall because I'm going to catch you. I'm going to catch you. That's why you don't do it for God, you do it with God.
Yes, yes, yes.
You shall not utterly fall.
He said, my foot almost slipped.
My foot almost slipped.
Yes.
So we have to really, in this season, that's why I'm trying to get us, you are in your state of being, you trying to be successful when you don't even realize you're already success. Out of your state of being. You know, out of your state of being, you are, because of your state of being, you are success. You're not trying to be successful. You will be successful as you invest in who God made you. You know, when God talks to the people, the children of Israel, he says things to them, be holy for I am holy. That's not a human attribute. That's a spiritual reality that you can't even talk about what holiness is until it's revealed. So we have to really shift the thoughts of people. That's why Paul said, you know, brothers, if you're going to present your body to this way, you got to be renewed in your thinking, that you can know the good and acceptable will of God. I think I'm somewhere in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, because I know some people want the script.
Well, I want to acknowledge some more people that have joined us tonight. David Bates, thanks for joining us. Shondale Allen, my friend, thank you for joining us tonight. Lucy Joseph, appreciate you joining us.
Oh, that's my LMR. Right. Blessings to you, Lucy. I was thinking about you.
Tanya Sherrod, thank you for joining us tonight. Phyllis Isla Harris, we want to appreciate you for joining us.
From Redeemed, blessings to you.
All right.
Woman of God who supports me. Awesome. Blessings to you. Awesome. I see Anthony Whitehead.
Yes.
Blessings to you, Elder Anthony Whitehead. New King.
Cox is with us tonight.
Pastor Reese is there.
Yeah.
Chase Cox, I believe that's of the Howell. Chase Chaz Howell. Are you one of the Howells? I've been knowing them since you were born.
Angela Jefferson is with us tonight.
Oh, Angela, that Zoom I'm looking for you to do. She's the valedictorian of the 1987 class of John F. Kennedy. We were Jaguars, then we became Cougars in 1987.
So, Bishop, before we close it out, there are people listening to us, and they will probably come back and listen to this later, that are in a moment that they need to move from being aware of who they're becoming to now activating that and proceeding forward, but may have some apprehensions going forward, or maybe in a place where they just feel stuck. Talk to us for a few moments as we close.
Well, all those are normal feelings when God challenges you to move. You're going to have apprehensions. You know, religious people say, well, God didn't give you no spirit of fear. Fear is the catalyst to make you move. Because you're going to become so fearful, you're going to become so fearful to stay there and fearful to move. And the tension of that will propel you. So if you're apprehensive, so if you have a little fear there, if you will be willing and obedient to move and get to going, regardless of who's going with you. One of the things I want to say to you, because God is your promise. God will take care of you. That's why the first three verses are so important in Genesis 12. I will bless you, but you will have to go. I'm going to make your name great. Everything you're concerned about, God already has it worked out. And so all you need to do is take your scared self, take your shaken self, take your fearful self on the journey. And we all do it. So we got to tell the truth. If we're going to be transparent, don't talk about all your weaknesses. Talk about your realities of apprehension, because that's real. And God will take care of you, because you will feel the embrace of God as you begin to make momentum. But don't be immobilized.
Thank you, Bishop. Well, we've right at our time. This has been another episode of Destiny Rewind, and we want to thank you for joining us tonight. If this has been a blessing to you, if our ministry has been any blessing to you, you can be a blessing to us by sowing into our ministry towards our community efforts. The information is on the screen. You can sow to our Cash App, and we will definitely appreciate your sowing on tonight. But as we sign off for tonight, we just want to tell you that it's time to move from being aware of what you have, the potential you have, ideas, the dreams you have, to move from awareness to activation. It's time to go. It's time to move forward. Don't stay where you are because of fear, because of doubt, because of I don't know. Move forward and see God reveal God's self in you, through you, as you. As you go forward, you're going to see God. And what you're going to see is going to blow your mind. But give yourself the opportunity to see it. Join us this Sunday.
Let me jump in right there about joining in this Sunday. I think I have a word for you on Sunday, that I think this whole month I'm going to feature destiny. I think what I'm going to preach on Sunday is destiny under the juniper tree. You, if that's what the Lord gives me release to minister on Sunday, you want to tune in at 2 o'clock. So I don't always have. I always study, but I don't always know what direction I'm going in by Thursday. But I'm telling you, God has already begun to deal with me. And I think from my overflow, God is going to bless you.
Absolutely. And we are in high anticipation and excitement for that. Taste of Destiny on Sundays, every Sunday at 2 o'clock on all of our social media platforms. You can see them there at the bottom of the screen. Why don't you follow us? Stay with us as we travel down this road. You can join us on any of our platforms. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to keep abreast to any of our service offerings. And know that when you come into a moment of destiny, it's a moment that's going to change your life for the rest of your life. Because we're engaging to love, we're enlightened to learn, and empowered to lead. See you next time. Thank you for joining us.
Blessings.
God bless.